yeah, I mean, I don't know why it's freaking me out, but yeah, it must be because my roots are for playing live poker, so I used to always see the dead buttons from time to time anyway. And Bino gives us a bit of an advantage, doesn't it? Just getting to bail out on the big blind. I think I will check here. Not really. It's kind of a half pot control-y type check, but also just, I mean, he could actually have, you know, something decent and be being a little bit careful. And at the same time, we have the ace of hearts. But I think I'm going to bet now. And I think I'm going to just try and bet an amount where he might feel obliged to call that because we check flop with, you know, any pair. And, you know, if he has a heart as well. I think from here now, when we see this, some of the time he's just thought, well, hey, buddy, you've checked flop, you've got nothing, and I'm going to just snap check raise, is one possibility. Another possibility is he's actually got a hand like, you know, Queen 10 of hearts, where he's just got a monster and he's just trying to, you know, build the pot slowly. And another possibility is he's got like a King 9 maybe with a King of Hearts, where he just feels like he's got the best hand because we check flop, and he doesn't really know how to play it properly. So he's just like, I'm raising, I think I have the best hand, kind of thing. He could have a small ace as well, I guess would be a chop now. So that's not terrible. It's kind of really hard here to put him on hand. I mean, because the three options that I've just mentioned are really quite varying, aren't they? Because, you know, on the one hand, I'm saying he's got a depolarized range where he has, or what we sometimes call a condensed range, where he can have like 9-10 or King 9 and just think he's got the best hand, but not know how to play it properly, so just kind of raise, which is a bit fishy on the turn. He could have the draws, we said. We could have the nuts, we said, with like a 10 Queen of Hearts or, you know, that sort of thing, which, you know, obviously he did. And I think, yeah, I mean, just because anytime a player's got a condensed range they might be playing, then, you know, it makes it hard to put them on a hand. And you might think, hey, this guy's not going to raise there with a 9 if he's got 9-10 suited or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of see it in the low buy-ins quite a bit. They don't really understand pot control. They don't really understand getting value, bluff catching, that sort of thing. They think more in terms of having the best hand or not some of the time. And so it wouldn't surprise me too much if he had a roll like a, you know, Queen 9 there, especially once he checked river. Obviously, yeah, well, I don't really know if he's... it's just hard to know he's thinking, isn't it? I don't know if he's... I guess he's like hoping we bet and trapping. But at the same time, if he's thinking that, I mean, he's probably not thinking about what we have, is he? If he's trying to trap, he's probably not thinking about what we have. Because there's really not that many hands that we would play that way that are now all of a sudden going to bet river. I mean, maybe 10 jack with the jack of hearts, I guess. I guess we might call with a flush draw up and down turn maybe, and then, you know, feel obliged to stab at it. But that's kind of the only hand that we can have because we didn't bet flop, remember, so we shouldn't really have an ace, but, you know, obviously we did, and we were being a little bit sort of, well, I guess you could say tricky by trying to get value on later streets and controlling the pot at the same time, which, I mean, obviously worked out well because I think on that flop texture against just a small blind, you know, likely fish, it could have got ugly. If we had a bet flop and the pot, you know, got built at an early stage. So, I mean, as it turned out, we actually played the hand. We really lost the minimum, didn't we? And, yeah, I think that's kind of a classic example of, you know, a recreational player just playing his hand very badly. The King 10 call from the small blind is not terrible. It's a little bit questionable itself, though, and, you know, at that stack depth at a final table. But but he obviously flopped well. But just got, when he hit on the turn, just got virtually no value, but just the one smallish turn bet. Well, small check raise, I should say, but yeah. This guy is opening again on the left, so as I was saying before, I mean, he could have a bit of a range. Well, I mean, he does. He would. He would have a pretty wide range there, but probably not quite feeling the 3-bet at that point. Again, just trashy hand, sort of stack depth where he could get a little cheeky on us. However, in this spot, well, now he's made the bigger raise and we've got the M7 in the big blind, so it's kind of a little bit tricky again. Because if we 3-bet to, let's say, 92,000, and then the big blind jams on us, I mean, we can't even fold. I'm just going to jam on the right. I think it's a pretty easy jam, actually, because the big blind's only got M1. So essentially, it's like it's heads up against the small blind. And the big blind is folding. You heard me talk about that before, actually, when I said there's different varying ways of a player being a bad player. And, that's probably one of them where this guy is just folding down to, well, it looks like he might fold down to just having an ante soon if he doesn't play a hand. I mean, the ante is almost 1,000 now. He's got 10 antes. Okay, he's decided to commit this time with the Jack-9, which, if he's committing from small blind against that opener from there with the Jack-9, it makes me kind of wonder what he's folding last hand from the big blind against a wide opener, getting even better pot odds. But, that's obviously just not the best play. But, a GG nonetheless, of course. Always want everyone to be happy. Keep them coming back for more. You don't want to abuse them and say, hey, you're a mush of fish. Because some people might not like to hear that, and they might think, well, poker sucks, I'm not going to play anymore. And then we lose the fish. You always want them coming back, feeling they played well and they're going to win the next tourney they play. I feel like we're being a little bit tight on the left table. I really do. I just feel like this maybe it's kind of a little bit of an awkward spot though, with the big stacks where they are, and the ICM at the same time too. I mean, it is almost one of those spots where we can just knit it up a little bit because we just have some very short stacks now. The blinds will be up again in 8 minutes, and I mean, these guys are getting really short. So it's almost getting to that point where we can coast to sort of third or fourth. I wouldn't say coast, but certainly, there's short stacks there that look like they're going to bust before us. And one just did. And he just called a jam with the King 6, was it? Was that what happened? It's can't be good for ICM, I would imagine. Top right, yeah, I mean, this is a bit tricky, this right table. Well, not so much now. There's just no way we can ever fold here. But at the same time, I mean, it's not like it's not a brilliant situation when he rivers a straight on us. It's not, I mean, from an ICM point of view, it's a little bit annoying because now we only have M5. And this is what I was talking before about stack preservation. But, I mean, we're never folding, obviously, but they're the ones you kind of got to win because we would have had M12 and been in that nice situation where we can 3-bet, we can open a little bit more liberally and not feel gross if we have to fold, open and then fold. Whereas now we can't really do that. I mean, M4 now opening, we can't, we just jam or fold. And so that's what I was talking about before. I mean, it was only an M3-ish jam from the small blind, but it was just significant to the way it affects our ability to play the stack that we're left with. It just sort of cripples us, and so we lose a little bit of the skill element because we have less moves up our sleeve. We just have jam or fold. So we still have to just now try to find the right spots to take the option. And actually, my room at the moment, the office I'm in, it's very dark, and it's got quite dark outside. Winter's coming on. It's not even 4 p.m. yet, but it's really dark out. It's pretty dark outside, so I can't actually see my wall where my power numbers are, even though it's quite a big poster. And so I'm just going to go and turn my light on, guys, just so I don't do anything too close to break even or make a mistake. Be right back. Well, we know that one's a fold. You would think I would have them all memorized by now, but it's I think when you have them pinned on your wall, then you know that you don't need to memorize them, and so your mind kind of gets slack. Although I do have a lot of ace tens, jack 10 jack off, jack queen, those sort of thing. I have that pretty well memorized. This guy defends wide, like we said, so I think I'm going to go ahead and bet here for value / protection. Just small. Yeah, the 7-5 is a bit nasty. I think I'm going to wait. You know, the blinds have kind of been defending quite a bit, and they have big stacks. And there is the one jam stack behind, although he's been tight. It's a pretty close spot. I think I will go for it. It's kind of close. We don't really want to get in, tangle right now with the big stacks. If they choose to attack us or just defend and make our life tough post. And again, on that sort of obviously quite dry board, I mean, against a player that I said is likely defending very wide, certainly want to go ahead and just fire a small c-bet. Interesting that he's gone ahead and raised here, and this is kind of what I was talking about, where I was saying it puts us in a tough spot from the sense that I think he's bluffing with a reasonable frequency here. I think it's a board that, especially recreational players like to bluff on. Well, I mean, it's just in general, it's not too bad a board for bluffing. But if we float or, go ahead and make the aggressive play there and 3-bet, yeah, I mean, if we're wrong, we lose a bunch of our chips. All of a sudden, we're one of the short stacks, whereas now we're kind of pretty solidly, fairly solidly in third. So that's kind of what I was talking about the open being marginal, because of the high pressure, the chips are quite precious. And, if we had deep stacks and if it was a different stage of the tourney, I think I would probably go with a float or just a raise flop there. Just because I just think he's not really repping that much when he check raises there, considering his overall range from the big blind is going to be pretty wide. So, I mean, he could have like a semi-bluff, I guess, some diamonds or like a 5-6 or 5-7. But he can have a lot of the time, I think, just like a, queen 9. Because he knows he can get really good leverage since, he's the final table. And we don't want to make any big mistakes. He probably would just check call with a king top pair. So, if he's repping a very strong value range, we expect it to be, I guess, 2-pair. Or, I mean, you could have a nut flush draw or like a straight flush draw type of hand, combo draw. But I think that given the frequency that he's defending with is so wide, and I think that given that he probably check raises on that board exploitively and not balanced, I think that he generally would have more bluffs in his range than he should when you're talking about the sort of hands or the combination of hands that he would check raise for value with. And so I think that I would normally play back at him in that instance had we not had this sort of high pressure situation. And, you know, that's really being brought about by the fact that we've got these other two guys quite short and a third guy also shorter than us. The Queen 7 suited. It's a PN of 11. But we only have a very small, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of right on with this one. I think I'm going to... No, I'm going to wait. Very, very close there. I will min-raise left, just because these guys have been kind of tight. And we don't really want the big blind to sort of get the jump on us. You know, we're kind of pretty close at the moment. He's one player I wouldn't mind contesting so much against, because the confrontation against him is quite important, that we stay ahead of him from an ICM point of view. And I think I'm going to check here. Yeah, it's a little bit scary because there is a kind of a lot of overcards that can hurt us. But we did say that he defends a little bit tight. So, you know, 10 Jack, Jack Queen, King Queen are all hands that he might just flat with. And so I don't think I don't think betting the flop is good. I mean, it's okay to protect. Our hand does need some protection. There's not really many hands we can get value from, though. So Jack 9 suited, he might, I guess, stab, or just like a big club he might stab with. He's going with a half pot. He could have Jack Queen or King Queen. I think given the line we've taken, we can't quite fold to him because we took that sort of conservative line and we said that, well, I mean, I just don't think that there's enough value hands in his range, given that the club hit and that we've called and it's final table and there's a bit of pressure. And you can see that he, you know, he's betting with the 5-6 there, turning it into a bluff. I'm presuming he might not really know what he's doing, but I think when you're weighing up the fact that he could have, I guess, a King 9 suited, he could have King Jack, Jack 9, he could have, it's like a King 8 of clubs or Jack 8 of clubs type of thing. With one club. And might feel, as he did, the opportunities there to win the pot by betting the turn and then following through on the river. And I think if he does bet turn, I think should always be and probably always be following through on the river, because he can very easily put us on one big club, and we didn't bet flop, so it doesn't really look like we have a queen and maybe not a 10. So it does kind of look like we have Ace Jack, Ace King, or like just Ace 5 with the Ace of Clubs or something like that, or maybe a smaller pair like 8s or something that he might be able to fold out. And I think with 8s it would have been a bit tougher, even though it's kind of the same thing, because he shouldn't really be... I mean, he might value bet Jack Queen, but I think any less than that's getting a bit thin. If he's got like a Queen 9 or Ace 10 or something, he's running out of sort of hands he can get value from, isn't he? Because, you know, there's a flush there as well now, and there's quite a high pressure situation. So he did make a little bit of a loose defend, but I mean, it was only a min raise and he had the 5-6 suited. But that was a kind of a key pot now, isn't it? Because it's just popped us up. Too bad about the 3s on the right. Obviously, the Queen King offsuit call. That was a little bit kind of loose, but not terrible. I mean, just because he did have, well, I guess it's only 50, but I actually probably, well, yeah, but he's not going to get called, I guess, too often. He looks very, very strong. His hand is kind of a way over-repped in the sense that, you know, he looks like he might be committed to these guys, and it would be interesting to see what he did do, actually. If this guy jams here, it's kind of getting pretty hard to fold, because of the pot odds would be huge, which is why I might fold there, just because, I mean, we're short, but we have still jammed UTG. It's not like we've got bananas, and he's got the 5 players behind, and it's 1/4 of his stack. And if, these guys here jam, it puts him in a pretty awkward spot. I guess he probably would fold if they jammed. But I don't know about this guy, though. So when you weigh that all up, yeah, it's a very borderline spot, I think. But certainly one that I would expect players, at low stakes to be. I mean, he's certainly not going to be thinking about the hand in that much detail. He's probably just going to be thinking, oh, I got king queen, he's short, I'm going to call, sort of thing. So, not to worry, we finished 7th there, and we'll try and make amends and do better on this this 888 poker, which has the bigger prize pool anyway, of course. See if we can get some good action. I'm just going to make the table a bit bigger. And I was going to say this looks like it might be a chop. I just sensed it. Just sensed it somehow. Kind of freaks me out, this table, when you make it bigger, like I have. When I extend the size of the table, the cards seem to not change size as much as the table, and they all of a sudden look tiny. I don't know if it's just me or not, but this 4-5 offsuit here looks pretty tiny compared to the table now. So I'm just going to fold, obviously. So we've got the M2 now in the big blind. We've got our friend with the that we beat before with the 5-6, who did quite a bit of complaining in chat, which is always good to see. Happy to see that. And now we're going to lose the big blind. This is kind of what I was saying about coasting to 3rd or 4th. We could have perhaps made a few more 3-bets or opened a little bit more earlier. But at the same time, like happened with the Ace-7 there, just have to be a little bit careful about, spewing chips around and putting ourselves down with the pack. So right now, wow, this is really close, isn't it? I think I'm going to fold. This guy actually has been limping a lot, but not really opening, and certainly not 3xing. His stats kind of say he's been a little bit tight with his opens, just loose with his calls. And we're not mega deep. And of course it's high pressure in terms of ICM. Not in terms of, oh my god, I'm really nervous here, guys. Just more in terms of the prize pool distribution. Means that, of course, the chips are a lot more valuable. Well, you know what I'm trying to say, guys. I'm talking about ICM. Chips don't have a one-to-one relationship like they do in a cash game anymore because of the price structure and the way the tournament is so top-heavy with the payouts. And so our chips at the moment are quite valuable to us. And so that means we need to refrain from getting in some sort of marginal situation because there is what we call a bubble factor in play, which dictates that we should be a little bit tighter than normal right now, especially when we consider the fact that we've got the two players over here, Chikon and EJKCG, that are getting on the short side. And I would really like, I'm going to fold there just because he's half potted and there's a bunch of players in. And he had a straight over there, so interesting that he had the ace there. Yeah, I would love to get in sort of three-handed with these big stacks if we can. Heads up, ideally. I think that we'd have a really big edge and we'd be able to potentially, just chip away at them and get ourselves back into it. I don't really mind. I think he played that okay. The ace-3 raised and then check flop, check turn, and then did bet river. I think probably he doesn't need to bet river though, because I just think that just the chance someone has a straight or a 9 slow played, or I don't think that many queens are going to call. I guess queen king or jack queen. Yeah, it's pretty borderline. There's not much worse. There's a flush there as well. Everything's there. I think you may as well check. I think it's a little bit hard to get value. Although these guys can be on the loose side, so it's not terrible. This is one of those spots where if I had to chips, I would certainly be applying pressure and raising from late position steal and playing pressure against these sorts of stacks. But unfortunately, we only have M13, so, and the big stack who's been kind of loose and defending pretty wide in the big blind. Chikon, the button player, hasn't been all that loose with his steals, or just in general from what we've seen. So certainly certainly looked like he had a hand, and I mean, he just got snapped off there by the ace-4. He might have wanted to at least have thought about it for a minute. He's got a very tight player, high ICM just blazing away. It looked like he had an overpair. And he's blamed it on the misclick. Always a good excuse when you make a bad call is misclick. But what do you guys think? I'm not really buying it. I mean, the guy's got himself top pair, gut shot, a limper, who's been splashy. He ain't doing folding. He don't do folding. Well, this is kind of getting annoying now. I mean, it says he's only been stealing 13%. He's gone for the 3x again. We do have a fairly good hand. This is getting a little bit annoying. 40 to call. Queen 10 suited. Yeah, I guess we can't quite fold, can we? Probably can't quite fold, I guess, getting the price that we're getting. This is interesting. Snap checked. I think at this point we want to make a semi bluff, but not too tiny. He might be pot controlling here with a small ace. I think I'm going to bet. He could have tens or something like that. I don't know if he's going to be able to hero those hands. So we'll just bet and hope that he's got an ace. But he would have heroed with it because he's got the 9. I sort of wasn't sure, whether we wanted to bet really big there and try and get, an ace to call. Because I think if we bet pot, he's not folding an ace. But at the same time, if he's got just a 1 pair under the ace hand, it's going to be pretty hard to get a full pot value. So I was feeling more sort of just over half pot where he might just think we're bluffing because he checked flop, which was the case. But he snapped it, and we saw him snap the ace-4 before. So I may have missed a little bit of value on the river there. I maybe should have gone a little bit closer to pot size, thinking that he's going to call always with an ace anyway, and maybe sometimes with worse. But it was a decent, size bet anyway. But yeah, I think I could have gone a little bit harder. But yeah, it worked out well. Okay, guys, break time for me, and for you, well, we'll be right back with some more action.